With James Harden officially a member of the Brooklyn Nets, the eyes of trade conspiracy theorists everywhere are solely focused on Bradley Beal. The Washington Wizards star is one of the best players in the league. Plunge on one of the worst teams. Could the San Antonio Spurs rush in to save him? Kevin O'Connor spoke to 14 front office executives about which teams come to mind as a sleeper in the hunt for Bradley Beal. The San Antonio Spurs were one of the teams raised. San Antonio's legendary avoidance of trades would apparently prevent them from any deal of this immensity, but frankly, the timing couldn't be preferable for the Spurs to make a move. The Spurs have a special group of young players who have dazzled fans this season, but the one thing that this group appears to be missing is a true superstar who can take them over the top. At times, Keldon Johnson and Lonnie Walker have considered as they could grow into consistent 20-plus points per game scorers. But why settle for uncertainty when the real thing is waiting for them in Washington? Spurs players and coaches have made it clear that returning to the playoffs isn't just the goal, it's the expectation. If San Antonio wants to make that a near assurance, trading for Bradley Beal is unquestionably one way to make that happen. As salary caps continue to rise, we're noticing a constant cycle of someone becoming the highest paid player at their position only to be surpassed by the player next in line for a deal the next offseason. This reoccurring cycle of upswings is happening in the trade market as well. Overpaying just isn't a thing anymore. Look at what the Clippers gave up to acquire Paul George last summer, what the Rockets gave up for Russell Westbrook and what they received for James Harden, and what the Milwaukee Bucks had to hand over to bring in Drew Holiday. If you want a superstar, you're going to have to pay supersized rates. Thankfully, a trade of this immensity wouldn't gut the Spurs. They've got sufficient good young players and own all of their first-round picks for the next few years. They can match any price Washington might request. The Spurs would have to likely give up at least two of the group of Devin Vassell, Lonnie Walker, DeJounte Murray, Keldon Johnson, Derek White, and Luka Šimanić. Given the trades we've seen go down in the past year, we can also presume that at least 3, possibly 4 or 5, first-round picks would also be included. It's a lot, but it would be worth it to land Bradley Beal. There aren't many mixes of picks and players that the Spurs should turn down. If a potential trade was going to cost them Vassell, Johnson, and their 2021 first-round pick, I'd be doubtful, but again, this is Bradley Beal we're talking about. He is one of the most well-rounded offensive players in the league. He can carry a scoring load all on his own and can also deliver playmaking from the two-guard spot. He'd fit well with the drive and kick offense the Spurs have been running this year. Decreasing DeMar DeRozan's role has brought out the best parts of his game even more. Could something similar happen with Beal? He wouldn't need to be counted on to put up 40 points per night in San Antonio. With the Spurs' strong backcourt of playmakers, Beal could focus more on getting to his spots and getting off the best looks possible instead of operating as a one-man army. However, one concern would be that in trading for Beal, the Spurs may have to gut themselves of the young defenders they've spent the past few years developing. The Wizards' inability to guard a parked car has been a point of frustration for Beal. But with how many good young players the Spurs have, they should be able to put forward an acceptable offer without totally emptying their roster. They should still be a better defensive team than the one Beal is on now, even after any prospective trade. Even if San Antonio lost 2 or 3 of their young players, the ones that remain with Beal, DeRozan, and Mills should be enough to carry the Spurs back to the playoffs. And if San Antonio could hold on to their 2021 draft pick, they'd be well on their way to being one of the best teams in the conference. How improbable the San Antonio Spurs trading for Bradley Beal is. Washington doesn't want to let him go, and the Spurs don't typically make big trades. But they've got the assets to get it done, and this is the kind of seismic move that could change the circumstances of this franchise for the next decade. It would be hard to give up all these players and picks, but it would be worth it. Meanwhile, the Toronto Raptors are in a weird spot. They currently sit at a 4-8 record and are mulling around the bottom of the standings. At the same time, they've been right there to the very end in their last few games and are a few bounces away from sitting at .500. The Raptors are still nowhere close to being aggressive in an ever-strengthening Eastern Conference. There are a few adjustments as Masai Ujiri and Bobby Webster need to make to this roster to become a prospect. The substantial of those has to be to add some capacity and skill to the center position. Aaron Baines and Alex Len have been instant regrets as free agent signings for the Toronto Raptors. Nick Nurse is at the point where he puts one of them in the starting lineup for 5 minutes, then neither of them see any floor time again. Chris Boucher is forming into a star before our very eyes. Although he is a great shooter and rim protector, he cannot be counted on to defend against some of the powerful and physical all-star centers in the league. Unless he can put on some of Giannis' gains, he'll never be that guy for the Toronto Raptors. Masai Ujiri is one of the best executives in the league, and you know he already is working on a plan. Center has to be the big fish he is hoping to land. Here are some of their options. Cody Zeller isn't the most thrilling player in the league, but he is a Swiss Army knife type who can get it done from anywhere on the floor. Zeller is an intelligent player who also can play the physical game. He holds some skill around the post and is quite mobile for a center. He runs the floor hard and can catch defenses sleeping on his skills time after time. Master of the pick and roll, Zeller would be a significant help to the Toronto Raptors guards. Cody Zeller isn't going to give you 20 points a game or be counted on for a triple-double a night, but he is a solid center who will surge the efficiency of any offense. There is also Richaun Holmes, who would bring skill to a Toronto Raptors center position that is seriously lacking anything of the sort while being a great defensive player. This sounds like a perfect fit. Holmes is a tough and athletic big man who can operate around the post with advantage. On the other end of the floor, he is a quick and agile defender who has great timing when it comes to contesting or blocking shots. Holmes' athleticism lets him run the court like a guard and is a good ball handler for the center of his build. Great footwork and dribbling skills. He's not a great passer, and he has some areas of his game that he continues to develop but can continue to work on. His three-point range has shown flashes of skill but is impartially inconsistent and cannot be counted on a night in and night out. You can count on him on both ends of the floor, and he would add a great scoring punch as well as harmonious defensive effort from the center position for your Toronto Raptors. He is someone who could go up against the big guys at the position and just let Chris Boucher focus on his offense and rim protection. Lastly, the Toronto Raptors fans have held an interest in Andre Drummond's services for some years now, this season more than ever. The rebound king is a guy you can count on for a double-double in the rebounds and points column. Even though Drummond does most of his work around the paint, he can space the floor and would create more open shots for the Raptors shooters. Averaging 1.4 steals and 1.6 blocks during his career, Drummond can get it done on the defensive side of the ball as well. Drummond would be the man to go against the all-stars of the center position and create mismatches against any player that can't compete with his size and strength. He may be a bit limited offensively, although efficient at hitting open jumpers, but it doesn't matter. He brings exactly what the Toronto Raptors need. All of the mentioned players are impending unrestricted free agents, but don't expect any of them to last long on the open market if they hit it. The Toronto Raptors are not far away from being a competitive team in the Eastern Conference. Why waste a year of your young players' primes when these available names can put you right back in the playoff mix? If you're new here and enjoy the video, be sure to subscribe for more NBA content like this. All support would be greatly appreciated. Let me know all your thoughts on this down in the comments below. I am out.